So I was 29 years old, just about to turn 30. I was living alone in London, single with no children or major commitments really, besides covering my bills and supporting myself. Fortunately, my rent and overheads were relatively low, especially for London. Bottom line, if ever there was any kind of appropriate time, so to speak, in my life for me to be so unbelievably selfish and self-centered, which I knew I had to become in order to attempt this, then surely it was now, when essentially I was young enough, had the energy, the enthusiasm, and was probably also naive and even dumb enough to try taking it on. Not when I'm older, much more wary, have less energy, and not when I have any other more serious commitments to consider beyond just looking after myself. Also, without wanting to sound even more melodramatic, I felt that me being a young person who lives in a developed country in the Western world, that I was lucky I was in any kind of position at all really where I could even try taking this on, and this crazy idea of mine was even an option to be had. So by now I had started to form quite a clear idea about the type of feature film I wanted to make, or one that I believed I could make without a budget. Naturally, without any budget, the scope for such a film was very limited. This could not be a lot of films, such as an action film or a film that was heavily involved with special effects or car chases, explosions, big set builds, or anything else really that needed a large cast, crew, big production levels, or too many moving parts beyond the absolute necessity. I had several script ideas in mind that I'd been chipping away at for years, but none of them seemed suitable really for a no-budget film. What I found was that I kept coming back to a short film I wrote and made in 2010. It was a story about an electrician named Mark. Electrician, the short film version, had lots of moments of promise within it, and it kept popping back in my mind as being the film to now turn into a feature, especially with how we went about it back then and what I learned from making it in that way. There really was a lot of effort put into it back in 2010. It was the first time really that I had experimented with trying to film a fictional film with non-actors in and around real life situations and locations, and this was probably the biggest reason why I attempted this short in the first place and what intrigued me the most about doing it. For example, we filmed a scene in a pub in East London one busy Friday night. I had already visited this pub previously, socially, and I thought it was just a great local London boozer with lots of interesting characters wandering around. It had this amazing atmosphere, all very old school, with a lot of elderly locals all dressed up for the evening on their Friday night out. The karaoke machine was in full swing. It was brilliant, and no doubt is a world that is dying out in London, unfortunately, if not already. I got permission beforehand from the pub owners, who were great about it, and they were fully aware that two friends and me would be coming down to do a bit of filming. One of those friends being a person called Rory Farrelly, who plays the lead character of Mark in both the short and feature-length version of Electrician. We eased into the filming at the pub that night, at first just capturing a few shots of Rory having a drink alone at a table, watching everything going on around him. It was also a chance to let the locals in the pub get used to seeing us there, what we were doing, and that one of us had a camera and was filming stuff. But once they did, the intrigue soon wore off, and in the end they just ignored us, which is what we wanted anyway. As the night wore on, we got a little bit more daring. I would stand with Rory at the bar and film him waiting in line to order his drink, and then I'd film him interacting with the barmaid. Then I started moving around the pub to get shots from different positions. I tried to keep the camera rolling no matter what, and at the same time the landlady of the pub was moving around the room selling raffle tickets for the night when she eventually got to our table while I was filming. Now I knew that Rory knew what I was thinking and how we need to keep on filming, so he started to interact with the landlady while still keeping in his character, asking her questions about the raffle. And in the end, he bought some raffle tickets off of her, and to give the landlady her credit, she also played along brilliantly. Later on that evening, while we were sat elsewhere in the pub, more embedded this time around the locals, and again while I was filming, the landlord of the pub stood on the karaoke stage, and using the microphone he was calling out the winning raffle ticket numbers, and lo and behold, Rory won the bloody raffle. Without breaking character and the camera still rolling, he got up out of his seat, walked up onto the stage and collected his prize, of which we captured entirely. You couldn't make it up, and it was a very memorable night for us. So the short in 2010 was all very rough around the edges. It was shot on an old SD digital camera in a kind of documentary style way, and whilst there were a few slight plot differences, such as the short film concentrating on race related issues, overall the idea would go on to be mostly the same for the feature version, about a lonely electrician living in London, not enjoying life, consumed by the rat race, struggling mentally, and this time he's trying to reconnect with his wife and kids who had walked out on him. A real Christmas film. The feature also included other people who appeared in the short, all coming in to do the same roles again or a variation of them. Filming around real life like that in the pub and in other locations we shot at in 2010, such as on small construction sites, and capturing the rawness, grittiness and the realness of characters, along with the unexpected surprises that might otherwise be lost when you try and stage everything, massively inspired me. It made me eager to explore further possibilities of this approach and push its boundaries, obviously like many other filmmakers have done before me, of course. Also, this approach helped me get over my issue of having no budget, as essentially I was using life around me as my set and world to film around. So instead of resisting my surroundings, the limited options, and letting that hold me back, instead I discovered that I should run towards them and embrace them all instead, and create something that fits in keeping with them all. And this is what ultimately led to the decision to create a no-budget feature film.